Hi folks, I'm Matt Kokinis, owner of Microfarm Organic Gardens, and today we're going to show you how to inoculate an oak log with shiitake mushroom spawn. And first we'll just go over the materials that we need to inoculate the log. The big one would be the log. And when you're growing shiitake mushrooms, it's important to choose the right type of log. And in the case of shiitake, the best choice is an oak log, and if possible, a white oak. You get the best results from white oak. So remember to cut the log in a length of about 36 inches and anywhere from 4 to 8 inches in diameter. and it should be cut from a live tree in its dormant phase. So it can't be a dead log you pick up off the ground in the woods, or it can't be a branch from a dead tree. It needs to be from a living tree in its dormant phase. And its dormant phase is when there's no leaves on the tree in the winter, essentially. So I've got my log. We actually cut this one about 2 months ago up in the mountains of North Carolina. So it's definitely a dormant tree. I've got a hammer to tap in my plug spawn. I've got my cheese wax, and we'll use the cheese wax to seal the plugs into the log and prevent them from drying out. I've got the plugs themselves, which are actually, these are little dowels that are soaked with shiitake mushroom spawn. And so we'll drill out holes and pound these down into the log and seal them in there so they don't dry out, and then we'll grow mushrooms. I got my drill, and you'll notice this bit has a stopper on it so that I can drill a hole that's exactly 1 inch deep, which is how big the plug spawn are. So got my drill bit with my stopper. It's the exact width of the spawn, and I've got my ruler. I'm kind of an OCD guy, and I like clean lines and exact measurements, and so we're gonna use the ruler to give the correct spacing between all the holes in the log. So here we go. We got all of our materials. We got our drill. Oh, and I forgot my black coffee. If you're like me, you need your coffee. And we're just going to start drilling. So start from one end of the log, come in about 2 inches with the ruler, and drill your hole, and then space your holes about 6 inches apart. Okay, so just come down the log and okay, there's 6, 12, 18, 24. Okay, so I've drilled down one side of the log, or made one line of holes. Now what I'm going to do is tilt the log forward slightly, and I'm going to drill another row about 2 to 3 inches around the log from that row. Okay, I'm going to take the ruler, and I'm going to start this hole at about 6 inches, or you can just simply walk on the wild side and just eyeball it. So I got my 2 holes here, and between them would be right about here. And then you just come down and drill between each set of holes on the first row that you drilled, and with the idea that you're going to create this sort of diamond pattern for your plugs. Okay, so it's not the end of the world if it's not exactly in the middle, but you get the idea. All right, so then we're just going to keep making our way around the log. All right, so we've got our holes drilled, and now we're going to tap in the plug spawn. And it's as easy as it sounds. Just take a hammer. I like my little ball peen hammer, and just line it up in the hole and tap it in. You'll notice that the plug spawn are really wet. They're soaked in the mushroom spawn solution, and you know, again, the importance of using a log cut from a live tree is that there'll be moisture in the log to keep these from drying out, which is critical. So when you're hammering your plug spawn, you'll notice that they're wet, and they're actually soaked. They come soaked in the mushroom spawn solution, and that's why it's so important to use a log that's cut from a living tree that's in a dormant phase, because the moisture in the tissue of the wood will keep these plug spawn from drying out. Okay, so we've got all of our holes drilled in the log, and we've got the plugs hammered in to each hole. And the final step to inoculate the log is just to seal up the plugs with cheese wax. Now, cheese wax has a low flash point, meaning it can explode and catch on fire if you weren't careful in how you melt it. So you can use a double boiler to melt cheese wax, or I've got this little slow cooker that I picked up for $10, and this works great too. But I've got my melted cheese wax here in a little brush, and I'm just gonna apply the cheese wax. Just drip it over each plug and seal the plug in. It's pretty basic, really, and that'll it'll do a couple things. It'll keep the plug from drying out. It'll also prevent insects and things that shouldn't be getting into the things that you don't want contaminating the plug from getting in there. So just go around the log and seal up each plug with the cheese wax.
Well, I mean the whole process.
Okay.
Like you need a hammer, you
Right.
need a ruler,
Okay.
you need a drill.
Okay, so to inoculate a log with shiitake mushroom spawn, you need a 36-inch log, preferably an oak log, cut from a living tree in its dormant stage. And its dormant stage means that the tree, there's no leaves on the tree. It's fall or winter or early spring. The tree is not actively growing. And you need, of course, plug spawn, and you need a hammer, you need a drill, and you need cheese wax and a safe way to melt the cheese wax. And you can use a double boiler, which will melt the wax at a low temperature, or you can also use a slow cooker to safely melt the cheese wax. Some sort of dauber or little paint brush to apply the cheese wax, and that's all you need.